It's time now for some headlines. Well, days after the shooting in a Texas church, the Michigan Senate passed legislation that allows gun owners to carry a concealed weapon in schools, churches, and several other places that were previously off limits. People could get permits along with extended training to carry concealed weapons in these places. Now, this legislation came back up in 2012 after Sandy Hook. Governor Snyder vetoed it then. It's funny, I was looking on social media and I was on Facebook, and a conversation that we actually had on MiWeek back in 2015 about concealed weapons being carried in schools. We had a debate. It actually popped back up into my timeline, which was very interesting. This is something that we have been talking about here in Michigan, and the Senate made bold moves this week. Why was it a good idea, or why was it a bad idea, Nolan?
Well, I think I've taken the position, I think our gun laws in Michigan are where they need to be. I don't think this was necessary. I think the impact is muted greatly by the fact that the legislature added this caveat that you can opt out. And that's the way it's been for churches in the beginning. I mean, churches could opt in or out.
Private property.
Yeah, well, it's church. And church could say, if you want to bring your guns to church, that's fine. And many churches do, both in the city and the suburbs, say it's okay to come in and carry. When they added that provision that you can opt out of this, you could say, no, this is a no-gun zone still. I think you mute its impact a little. I still think Snyder will do what he did the last time. I think he vetoes it.
Is there a concern about bringing this legislation up this week? Was it poor timing? That's what you heard complaints from Democrats this week.
I don't think it's great timing. I mean, I also think, this is a legislature that can't get its act together to do all kinds of really important things here in the state of Michigan, but they'll do this. Why? Because it panders to the gun lobby and the gun industry. Part of the problem in discussing this in legislative terms is that one party has been completely hijacked by the industry, not by individual gun owners, but by gun sellers, gun distributors, the people who make money off of this stuff, and they can't let go of it. If we want to have reasonable debates about, I'm happy to have a reasonable debate about gun control with people who want to carry guns or who want to own guns. I think it's not a reasonable debate when you're debating with an industry that has bought one party.
Hang on one second. Could you say, though, that we've always talked about we want responsible gun ownership. Could you say that this legislation breeds responsible gun ownership because you have to have the extra training, you have to have the extra certification?
There's a measure in the legislature pending now in that too, which I've disagreed with. I would disagree with Steve that this is entirely industry driven. There's a lot of people who resent the fact that they went out and got their CPL training, got their license, and now when they go out of the house, they have to say, well, gosh, I got to stop by Tommy's school, so I got to leave my gun here, or worse, leave it in the car where it's vulnerable to theft. And I think there was a lot of pressure from gun owners on this. I don't think this was entirely industry driven.
I mean, don't you think, though, there's a lot of pressure from parents and students that hear any time that guns, whether it's a concealed weapon, whether it's someone has the license to carry it, has extra training, anytime that you have a gun in a school, that's something that is a non-starter with a lot of people?
Again, I think there's two views on this. Some people don't want a gun anywhere. Others have the position that, well, if there's a responsible gun owner, maybe they can intervene. You saw in Texas, it was a private citizen with a gun who took down this shooter. Now, that doesn't happen most of the time, but it does happen. And
what happens far more frequently is that you shoot somebody who you're not supposed to shoot.
We haven't had that much
gun accidents are off the chart.
With CPL carriers. That was the fear when that law was first liberalized, and it hasn't materialized here.
Well, we'll have to see what happens. 10 seconds left. Do you think that the House is going to agree with this and go with it? You think Snyder's going to stop it?
I think the House probably go with it, but I don't think the governor will. I think he'll veto this.
All right, well, we'll keep watching it. Thanks, guys. It's always good to see you. That's going to do it for MiWeek. Thanks so much for joining me.